A Wizardly Reputation by BrainTick123. The first and most important part of being a wizard is to always be the smartest person in the room. The single most useful thing that anyone has ever said to me. It was a combination fact, piece of advice, mantra, catchphrase, and truism. What an amazing thing to tell someone. It was the first thing that my mentor had ever said to me, and it had changed my life forever. Indeed, it was these very words that I pondered while gazing glumly down at my last one-third cup of pine beer. Vile local stuff, like a Douglas fir boiled in vinegar. New in town, apprentice. The innkeep was a frighteningly muscular half-orc girl who loomed over me from the other side of the bar. She had a wary countenance to her, all drumming fingers and shifty eyes. Strange that she'd be nervous in her own tavern. A wizard is new wherever he goes, for he has changed in the getting there, I said with as much confidence and mystique as I could manage through the sticky remnants of pine beer that still clung to my teeth. The innkeep glowered at me, clearly unsatisfied with my answer. Not an apprentice, then, but a full wizard. I raised my mug and gave a humble nod of affirmation. You have credentials, then? She asked, raising an eyebrow, clearly not believing that the pimple-ridden 17-year-old boy gagging his way through what was obviously his first mug of pine beer had the ability to channel the complex and arcane energies of the multiverse. I do have a badge, yes, but it isn't with me at the moment. I thought that a wizard is supposed to keep their badge on them always. Her accent rounded and softened every word, like she was speaking through a mouthful of pocket lint. The reason I don't have my badge, miss, is because you have it. Her face, cautiously inquisitive just a moment before, hardened into offense and anger, the barest hint of tusk appearing over her bottom lip. Now see here, manling, I'll not be accused of theft in my own yurt. I think it's time you packed up your... It's behind your ear, miss, I said, affecting an air of forced patience and brittle tact. That was enough to stun her. It was enough to stun most people. What in deep hell are you talking about, manling? With a theatrical roll of my eyes, I reached past her face, brushed the side of her head, and produced a perfectly genuine, if rather worn, wizard's mark, a small rectangle of engraved bronze about the size of my thumb. I then held it up for her inspection. Her face paled, going from a light green to an even lighter shade of green. How did you... Magic, my dear innkeep, how else? I'd think that has to be worth another mug of this lovely pine beer, wouldn't you say? Eyes darting back and forth between me to the badge, she refilled my mug from the earthenware jar that looked decidedly unwashed. Thank you, miss, I said, holding the mug out in a toast before choking down a small mouthful of the stuff. For her part, the half-orc drained whatever was left in the jar into her mouth, neck and jaw working the reluctant beverage down her throat. There was a moment of strained silence. My name's Gala, not Miss, she said finally, having shaken off the last 40 seconds or so of this bizarre conversation. You may call me Ciaphus in lieu of Manling, I said, holding out my hand for her to shake. Continuing, I said, it is an absolute pleasure to make your acquaintance. She grabbed my outstretched hand and yanked me forward into a headbutt, which landed right between my eyes. Though my head was now filled with stars, I was able to belatedly recall that this was a common greeting ritual amidst the orcish tribes of the northern steppe. Nice to meet you too, Kai. Oh, so we're doing nicknames now. Wonderful. Seeing that she now held the initiative, Gala pressed on. "'S a bloody good thing you came in today," she whispered, leaning in close enough that I could smell the sweet herbs she'd braided into her long black hair. "Oh?" I managed, still trying to blink the stars out of my eyes. "Oh, aye," she whispered, leaning closer. "See, so happens that I've worked for a wizard such as ye." This got my attention, seeing as I'd absolutely no coin with which to pay for the pine beer. "What kind of work would that be?" Gala, who had been clearly ill at ease since I'd been here, grew even more nervous and uncertain before my very eyes. Her hands fidgeted with the dish rag. "It's a bit complicated and private. It'll be easier if I just show you. It's in the cellar." Usually, when a potential client describes the job as complicated or private or in the cellar, they were about to ask you to do something highly illegal and or unethical and or dangerous. Usually I would refuse, slap some coins on the bar for the pine beer and leave. Usually I had some coins. "Lead on then," I said before gagging down the last of my drink and plunking the mug on the bar. Tossing her dish rag over her shoulder, Gala led me out of the large yurt that served as her tavern. Outside it was a bright and sunny spring day. The air was muggy and wet. The enormous curtain wall surrounding the city was, with its kilometer in height, able to keep the smell of animal shit and incense from being blown away by the wind like a cupped hand holding a fart. This orcish village, where I'd been cooling my wizardly heels for the best part of 2 days, was a mere suburb of a much larger tent city made up of orcish, human, and dwarvish refugees from the surrounding foothills. That tent city, along with several other such temporary settlements, was held in the stern embrace of the enormous megalopolis of Agroabat. Earlier, when Gala had asked if I was new in town, that was actually a rather complicated question. "Sellers ran back. Oi, manling!" I snapped out of my reverie and realized that I had been utterly absorbed by the hide flap I'd brushed up against on my way out of the yurt. In doing so, I'd accidentally learned the entire genetic lineage of the mites that made their homes in the patchy fur. If given a quill and several miles of parchment, I could mathematically describe the makeup of any of the several hundred of the mites living in this unfortunate ex-yak, down to the last atom. Shit like that is why most people decide not to practice arcana. There are lots of unpleasant side effects. Presently, I did my best to look chastised and gestured for Gala to lead on. She did so, and we splashed through warm puddles of rainwater and cow piss to arrive at a trap door set into the earth, made of fresh, rough-hewn wood. "Just finished digging it yesterday. I didn't think... I couldn't have known." It took a beat for me to realize that she was positively shaking. This girl, despite being heavily muscled, almost a foot taller than me, and in possession of a rather large knife which she wore at her belt, was plainly terrified of whatever was in this hole in the ground. Furthermore, wanted me to deal with whatever it was. I pondered fleeing, but that didn't seem practical. Gala looked like she could run me down in 50 paces, and I was running out of places where I was welcome within these bloody great walls. When in doubt, a good wizard acquires more data. "Miss Gala, Gala, uh, what am I going to find down there?" She mumbled something that was barely audible over the thin hubbub echoing off the curtain walls from the wider city. "Say again," I prompted. "'S a bloody hero golem," she hissed through clenched teeth. I felt a frown, slow and deep, spread across my face like a bad rash. She must be lying, or mistaken. She must be luring me down here to ambush me and steal all my cool wizard shit. She must be insane, wading through the shards of her own broken mind, thus prone to outbursts of utter nonsense. It was impossible, absolutely impossible, that a hero golem was in this cellar, and I had absolutely nothing to gain by. I flung open the hatch and half leapt, half fell inside, my boots crunching down on the gravel floor, loose dirt pattering down around me. Reaching into my robes, I withdrew a small solar lith, or a bright stone if you're boring. Muttering a quick charm of transmutation, I felt my arm grow cold as the solar lith drew upon my body heat and converted it into light. The resulting brightness of the stone was more than enough to banish the darkness of the cellar. This allowed for an abundantly clear view of what was obviously the head of a stone hero golem staring impassively back at me from the floor, the rest of its stone body still buried beneath the wet earth. My gut clenched as I realized that it had been ritually defaced. Spikes of various metals had been driven into its neck and head, runes of binding and pain inscribed along their length. Bizarre stains covered its face in geometric patterns that hurt to look at. Agrippina's tits, I cursed, my mind racing. I swear I didn't know it was there, Gala pleaded, having followed me down. I'm no grave robber, and I'm not a spy. I just found it here, just like it is now. I didn't touch anything, she exclaimed, her hands gripping her hair in big clenched fists, her eyes threatening tears. This, I remarked, this is bad, Gala. I fucking know that. Really bad. This doesn't look good for you at all. Aye, do you think I don't know that? You think that hadn't occurred to me? If any of the berries find out, they'll conscript me or deport me. They'll probably launch me over the curtain wall with the great bloody catapult. She began to pace the tiny distance between the earthen walls, the golem tracking her movement with its massive head. The shadows cast about the room by my solar lith were making it hard to think. My heart raced around my chest like a rabbit in a bag. I should have run when I had the chance. Why's it got all those spikes in it? Asked Gala, voicing a curiosity that must have been with her since she'd first found the thing. It dawned on me that she didn't even understand what kind of trouble she was in, the depth of the shit in which she was now submerged. For a moment, I could only clench my eyes shut and try to steady my breath. Gala, this golem has been ritually defaced. This, I said, pointing to a copper spike protruding from the golem's jaw, this is a charm of searing pain. I pointed to a squat iron wedge that had been driven into its chin. That's a charm of insidious nausea. A big one, too. I continued. A mark of shame, a mark of forgetfulness, a charm of intermittent rage, another of searing pain, a charm of endless fear. Gala, the heroic soul animating this golem has been under physical, emotional, and spiritual pain for however long it's been buried here. Doing this to a hero golem, the earthly vessel of a sainted soul, is among the deepest, darkest heresies you can commit. If any of the berries, red, blue, or green, think you had something to do with this. I saw from her tears that I did not need to finish my sentence. Death would be the least of her concerns. But you can fix 'em up, right? Gala begged, somehow managing to seem small. I doubt it. What? But you're a wizard. You've got a badge. I am barely a wizard. I got this badge out of a technicality. So what? So I'm probably the worst mage in this city. Besides, this was done with divine methods. You need a priest, not a wizard. You just said that any priest would skin me alive. Besides, what's the bloody difference? It's all magic, right? That's like comparing farming to hunting. Both get you food, but the methods are very different. And the food you end up with is different, too. You're asking the shittiest farmer in the city to do a very complex and dangerous bit of hunting. You have to try. I could very easily kill us both. I've got nobody else to turn to. Go to the blue cloak. Tell them the truth. I'm a feckin' half-orc. They won't believe a word. Then bury this place. Dig a cellar somewhere else. You said yourself that it's in pain. Plus, if they ever find out that I didn't come forward... Look, you'll fix it, I'll help, and we'll say that you, a registered human wizard, discovered it. Everybody's happy. She was right, of course. I didn't consider myself to be the sentimental type, or particularly religious, or even particularly kind. But could I really condemn this golem to further torment? Who could say how many hundreds, thousands of years it had been down here, buried in unending pain? Furthermore, could I really throw Gala into the grinding wheels of the law for a crime she didn't commit? Look, before I try anything, I need to do some research. Lithicles' library usually doesn't ask many questions. We'll need clean water, cotton cloth, and as much blessed incense as we can lay our hands on. And just for the record, I'd like to reiterate that this is a terrible idea. Gala swayed before me like a puppet on a single string. Then she drew back and socked me in the shoulder with enough force to knock me into the wall. Then she gathered me up in a bear hug. "I knew you'd come round, manling," she mumbled into my shoulder. "Thanks." Just as quickly, she shoved me away and walked back towards the hatch. "I'll find us those ingredients," she said, wiping her nose on her sleeve. And just like that, she was out the hatch and gone, leaving the golem and I to stare at each other in the light of my solar lith. "Just what in the entropic hell have you gotten me into?" I asked the golem, but it only stared silently back.